A big part of this process is engagement with the community, because unless they're there, they're not going to know about it and they're not going to respond to it and they're not going to vote yes on it. So throughout the whole process, what we tried to do was make people aware of what was going on, make them aware this process was underway, what the commission was considering, and then trying to get the word out about these community-wide gatherings, to look at these maps, to sit down at the table, to discuss it with us. So engagement is really critical. And it's hard, any community like Montgomery, to get more than 20 or 30 people in the Grange Hall on any given night is a challenge. So it's just a case of persistence. Find the people where they are, get the word out, and in some cases go to them. Go have the conversation in the local restaurant for the morning coffee club, or have it at the bar with somebody. But really try to reach out and get folks engaged in the process, because unless people are engaged in it, it's not going to be successful.
I think one of the things that many towns can be challenged with, especially in today's world where a lot of people don't come to public meetings all the time, and when a lot of people are very busy at night, is trying to figure out how to engage individual residents and community members so that they can learn about why is their town prioritizing this, why is their town making this choice. So we've seen a lot of towns struggling with how to best engage people. One of the neat things about being in Vermont is tools like Front Porch Forum, where you're able to talk to people through a email listserv, trying to look at community events where people may be gathering and how can you engage them at that time. We've seen some towns that have done surveys. They've sent surveys out to their town residents to get feedback, which direction they should move their plan in, and what are important values that people in their community see.
And one, ground rule that when we do have kind of a divisive community issue that we suggest is that the first couple of meetings are all about sharing ideas. They're not about debating ideas. And so that means anything we put on the table, we take the notes and we leave the, discussion of merit until later. And that allows people to share their thoughts without feeling like they have to defend their thoughts. We also tried, when we were building the steering committee, to make sure that people with different perspectives were represented. I think it also helped that LCPC was organizing and facilitating, because we were, are perceived as a neutral party. We provide assistance to the community. But we're not necessarily viewed as tied with one of the different groups with different ideas. And we work very hard when we work with the community to keep that kind of neutral stance so that we can, facilitate these kinds of discussions.
Maps are a really amazing tool to relay this information to people. Anytime you put a map out of a community that has something on it, the first thing anyone does is look to where's my house. And that gave people an opportunity to pinpoint it on the map, see how this would affect them or not affect them, and then a chance to sit down and talk about why. Again, these maps that the state provided, specifically the LiDAR ones that show, where the river was, where it is now, and where that river is going to move in the future, are really powerful to people. And when they see that natural process is in play on their own property, they come around to understand why it's important that we need to protect them.
The Rivers program, and now a lot of other river associations, have what's called a flume, which is a river in a box, essentially. And we can talk about river dynamics and how different changes we make to the landscape can play out in the bigger, in the bigger world. It's an example where people can see that play out right in front of them. And so we've heard examples of where the flume's been brought to the farmer's market or to the community meeting or to town meeting day. And so that's an opportunity where, again, people are already gathering. And the flume is something that no one can resist. It seems like that if the flume is out, people have to get their hands in there and start playing with the roads and the bridges and the houses to see what happens. And I think that it helps to make it more relevant to them when they can actually engage and move things around rather than having people talk to them or at them about rivers and streams.
One of the things that was really interesting and somewhat unexpected was when we did start using the Historical Society building, some of the members of the Historical Society started providing input into kind of the historic flooding dynamics. And that ability to talk about, the flooding that happened 50 years ago as opposed to what happened, at that point, 8 months ago, changed the dynamic a little bit because it wasn't about what had just happened. It was kind of painted that long-term picture.
You can't pass a regulation if you don't have feedback from the community and buy-in from the community. So the process may take time, but that's okay. You really want the buy-in so that when the regulation is there, people understand it and people accept that it's important as a part of their community.
If you take the time to talk to people and you are honest with them and you share all the reasons why and all the definitions for everything, and you take a 34-page bylaw and translate it into layperson's terms so they understand it, and you don't get nervous or shrink away from what they can and can't do on the streams and rivers, they appreciate that. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. This will be great. I'll be living in Green River all by myself by the time it's done, but the river will be fine. But it hasn't been that at all. People have gone out of their way to say how much they appreciate the transparency that the town has done over this particular bylaw. And that's all I can say is for every floodplain administrator. Know the job well enough that you're comfortable in the job. Then you can communicate to people, and they will appreciate just knowing. Even bad news. You're better off knowing bad news than not knowing the news at all.